entire history of biology, from the first naked DNA to this moment, is a history of progressively taking more and more control of more and more dimensions. First, primitive life moved. It had no eyes. It simply felt its way. That means it was like two-dimensional life. It just feels its way down a linear triode of sensation, defecating, eating, undergoing mitosis, and so forth and so on. But it's a two-dimensional thing. Well, then life acquired light-sensitive chemistry, which it sequestered on the surface of its cells, driven by serotonin, interestingly enough. And this light-sensitive chemistry gave the idea of a gradient. The organism had, however dimly, the notion here and there. And to have the notion of going from here to there, you have to add in the notion now and then. And what these notions being added in are dimensional vectors into the reality space. Well, then the entire history of life, from, let's say, the cross-octorigian fishes to Homo habilis, is simply the history of developing more efficient organs of motion in the three-dimensional world. Better eyes, better arms, better legs, mobility, motility, so forth and so on. Then, with the appearance of true human beings and language, an entirely new dimension, let's call it the fourth dimension of time, begins to be invaded in a very subtle way. It's that monkeys can't tell stories to each other about past experiences or hoped for denouements. Human beings can. That act of linguistic recollection is a small conquest of dimensionality. Well, once you invent writing, then all of the past can, in a sense, be kept in the present. The present is not a narrow slice of experience fading off into the past and the future. It becomes instead like a train moving into the future. The future is unknowable, but the past can be recollected and analyzed. And if the analysis is sophisticated enough, one can begin to triangulate outward toward the future. The history of science is the history of prediction. Well, what is prediction? It's taking control of a previously uncontrolled dimension, the future. And I think that the rise of electronic technology, the rise of extremely complex language-using societies means that we're about to go wholly in to the fourth dimension, the temporal dimension. And we see ourselves as distinct from our technology. You see, like when you are in a car, you think, I am a human being driving a human invention. But there is a point of view from which, no, you are just a human being who has put on another level of humanness, which happens to have wheels under it, and is rolling along. In other words, genetics, that changes the stuff of our bodies. Epigenetics, which we call ideology and technology, changes the environment in which our bodies operate. And I think we're getting set basically to decamp into the imagination, that the imagination is as real a place as across the river is if you've just acquired eyes. It's something you're seeing for the first time and then generating an appetite to go into. And this has been kicking around for 15 or 20,000 years. A shaman is a seer, is a prophet, is a higher dimensional mathematician. And they may not, use tensor equations to express what they're doing, but mathematics before symbols is experience. And so I I really believe history is ending very soon. I cannot conceive of 100 years in the future at the present accelerated rate of development. We have unleashed such novelty that I think we're in the terminal phase of decamping from three-dimensional space. We are leaving the womb of Newtonian being for something else, the imagination. And the birth is tumultuous. An entire planet is at risk. And eventually, toxemia seems to be setting in. We've used up all the nutritional resources in the womb. The walls are closing in. We're suffocating. Our political systems don't work. Our social systems are breaking down. If you're a realist, a pessimist, then you just say, well, this is it, folks. This is the smash up. The party lasted 20,000 years, and here comes the bill. But you might think that if you were a fetus trapped in a collapsing womb at transition, you could not conceive of the stockbroker, fashion designer, or whatever that you are going to be in another dimension, in another reality that you're being born into. And I think our aspiration is the conquest of death. Our religions promise it, and if our gods can't deliver, we'll elbow them aside and do it ourselves, thank you. And these things aren't decisions made by a single person or even a group of people. They come from the bone. It's who we are. We aspire to be magic, and we probably, given our track record, will achieve it. As I said yesterday, James Joyce said, man will be dirigible. Humorous thing to say, but yes.
They have no body, and the guy like gave me a real big cat.
Well, one of the nice things about my position is I don't have to entirely understand myself because I'm self-defined as a primitive. When we talk about decamping from Newtonian space, and you're asking me, what would it look like? I'm as puzzled as you are. I don't know. Is it nanotech? Are we going to become anti and all live in 1 acre of the rainforest? Are we going to find a way to completely transpose ourselves into the net and just shed our bodies the way we once shed the placenta that connected us? I once said the body is the placenta of the soul. But is that a religious statement or a technological goal? What do we mean the body is the placenta of the soul? And then people get really agitated because a lot of people, and I include myself among them, rather like the body. And you can imagine a debate in the Archaeozoic ocean when people of a very scaly and lantern-jawed type said, listen, we're leaving for the land. You see, you cannot live on the land. There's no water on the land. The land is our whole being. We're defined by the water, the joy of swimming, the great, on and on and on. Well, some organisms turned their back on that. And so then we had the conquest of the land. It's a big thing. It's a big thing because what we're being asked is, what is humanness? What can you discard and still be human? Can we discard our body and still be human? Can we discard our ethics and still be human? I'd rather keep my ethics and get rid of the body. But, we are sexual creatures. What is life? What is sex without a body, for crying out loud? How does that work and look? But it is really not ours to decide. We have grabbed hold of a tiger several billion years ago. Nature is a bootstrapping process, and it seems fairly unsentimental. There's no tears shed for the great sauropods that once stalked the planet. They were wiped out in an asteroid impact. That allowed the rise of the angiosperms and the mammals. We are the children and the inheritors of a planetary catastrophe. If this planet hadn't been wrecked 65 million years ago, we'd still be here. We wouldn't be here. Well, then what is our position on planetary catastrophe? We're in the process of making one. Is it so that 65 million years in the future, an organism filled with love and justice and intelligence will look back at our skeletons in the shale and say, well, they had a good thing going, but if it hadn't been for their extinction, we wouldn't be here. The very large scale is very large indeed. One of the things that's so interesting about the visionary plants is that they give you a large, large picture. I think the vegetable mind views death in a different way. Vegetables are eternal, in a sense. Through vegetative propagation, they can live virtually forever. Life lies very close to the surface in us, and if it's crushed out, we're very alarmed. Our sense of uniqueness is so highly evolved that our own death becomes for us the most universal tragedy we can conceive of. That's a serious ego dislocation, I maintain. Yes. Well, nature has two impulses. In the particular case, the impulse is always toward equilibrium. Animal species seek to establish niches for themselves in ecosystems that can then be maintained indefinitely, just the way you seek a job where you'll then get money, and without working too hard or eating too much excrement, you'll be able to maintain yourself indefinitely. If you look at all of nature right now, the human species is where the evolutionary cutting edge has become concentrated. And then if you look